so excited to share that through Executive Endurance Coaching, I've officially joined Never Second's Coach and Nutritionist program. Never Second is a science-driven performance nutrition brand built specifically for endurance athletes. I've personally been using their fueling system for years in my own training, and I love how simple, precise their approach to carbohydrate fueling is for runners, cyclists, triathletes, you name it. And today, if you want to try Never Second for yourself, our listeners can get 15% off by using the code GRIT15 at checkout. GRIT 15 at checkout. Just head to never2.com and start fueling your training with intention. This episode is brought to you by Queale, Performance for Life. Queale combines wearable technology with behavioral science to help you unlock more energy and perform at the highest level. Their coaches have worked with Olympians, Super Bowl MVPs, World Series champions, and other elite performers. Their 12-week program focuses on sleep, exercise, nutrition, mindset, and recovery, blending biometric data from wearables like Oura, Whoop, or Garmin with one-on-one coaching from a team that includes a dietitian, sleep coach, movement specialist, and mental performance coach. I'll personally be participating in their March cohort and will be sharing updates with you along the way so you can hear exactly what the experience is like. Grit Files listeners today receive 33% off the program using the code AGRANDOFF. Visit Queale.life to learn more. Hello. Welcome to the Grit Files. I'm your host, Laura Reynolds, and today we have with us Dr. William Queale. I'm going to have to read all of this because there's that many things behind the name, but Dr. Queale's a board-certified MD who aims to tackle the key issue in today's healthcare system and provide strong solutions to build a better system for patient and provider. We're going to definitely get into all that. Author of Dying to Save You, available national speaker as well. And strong advocate for preventative care and precision medicine. Dr. Queale, welcome to the Grit Files.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So we're going to tackle a lot today, but we're going to start kind of gritty. We're going to start with the hard parts since that's what we're here for. But early in your book, and we're going to talk about the book too throughout the podcast, but early in the book, you share something deeply personal, and it's your struggle with Ritalin addiction.
Right.
That's not something that most physicians openly talk about. So what made you decide to kind of lead with that? That was like chapter 1. I was like, oh, we're getting right into it.
Getting right in.
So what had you disclose that so early, especially being in the field that you're in?
Yeah, great question. So I wanted to write a book about the healthcare system, or what I call the sick care system. Mm-hmm. We're very good at taking care of diseases. We're not very good at helping people be healthy. So that was the premise of it. And I'd done some policy work and consulting work, and I had a lot of thoughts about the system. And then I was talking with a woman who I consulted with. She was a co-consultant. She actually was the head of CMS for a number of years. She wrote a blurb on the back of my book, and I said, well, if I'm going to write a book kind of on policy, I should just check with her to make sure I don't, step on any toes.
Right.
And I showed her the outline, and she said, this is great. You really need to do this. She goes, but please don't write a policy book. I want stories. She goes, I know you have a story.
We love a story.
Build that into your book.
Here.
Build that into your book. And that was the first thing. I'm like, oh, okay. Well,
one of those.
I do have a story. And as I got thinking about it, that's when I really started thinking about the parallels between my kind of collapse and rebuild. Mm-hmm. And this idea of the healthcare system is kind of collapsing. Yeah. So I'm very interested in what the rebuild looks like. I mean, the idea is we don't want it to collapse entirely. But we need to kind of reconfigure the way the system works.
Yeah.
I jumped right in, chapter 1, just lay it out there.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And I bring that up because I know, and I'm thinking back to like my college career. Luckily for me, I was diagnosed with ADD, so I already had Adderall.
Yeah.
But that was really prevalent in a high stress environment. Mm-hmm. Everybody at that age was taking it to pull like a one like all-nighter. Yeah. But for you in this field, I imagine you're pulling a lot of all-nighters. So it's easy to be like, all right, I'm going to start here and just get through these couple of nights. But, when did you first realize that what started as a performance tool had crossed the line into something else? And you're like, I need to tackle this.
So it did start off kind of innocent, right? I mean, I had 10 years of medical training. I got married, had 3 kids through that 10 years. Yep. So it was not just working 100, 120 hours a week. It was also being a father, being a husband, trying to balance all of that. And I had, over the course, the first 4 years was pretty good. I think internship crushed me in a way that I wasn't expecting. And that started anxiety and just really struggling. So I sought help. I don't mind seeking help. Johns Hopkins has great doctors. And it wasn't just mental. It was physical. I had leg issues. I had lightheadedness. I had all these kind of weird symptoms. Nobody could figure out what was going on. So I ended up seeing a psychiatrist who was great. She was amazing. Tried a bunch of medicines. They really didn't work. And ultimately, there was so much fatigue in there, right? I mean, no kidding, right? You're working, over 100 hours a week. So she said, I think that we could add this to one of your antidepressants and you'll help. It'll just help you function. And wow, did it really help? I mean, it was one of those it was like the first medication that I was prescribed. It's like, wow, this really makes me feel normal. And, the problem with medications like that, drugs like that, is you get tolerant to them.
Yep.
So 1 twice a day became 2 4 times a day, became 3 different doctors, and it just took on a life of its own.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it's so true. And it speaks to your point about kind of the healthcare system, because it was so readily prescribed to me for that same thing. And you don't even realize it's happening until you're like, oh, I can't function without this thing now.
Well, and that is the key. So towards the end, I'm like, this is kind of out of control. Things were just kind of going from bad to worse. But to your point, it did allow me to pull all-nighters because I was working during the day, doing all my research.
Oh yeah, you feel like Iron Man.
Well, yeah, and then at night I pull ER shifts at night. So it really did allow me to function. But then things just kind of clearly got worse, and I'm like, I have to get off of this. And that was the problem. That was the moment I think I realized, like, this is a big problem because I can't stop.
Yes.
The withdrawal off of Ritalin, same with Adderall, any stimulant, is just so god awful. It's so intolerable. The depression,
oh my
the
gosh,
apathy,
it's horrible.
you're catatonic. I literally could not get out of bed.
Yep.
So so I knew I needed help, and I think for me, the problem was I had already sought help from the best doctors in the world. I was at Hopkins, for God's sakes.
Right.
I had seen everybody, including the psychiatrists, and nothing was working. And I talk a little bit about this towards the end. It was the hopelessness. They crushed me. I mean, I could kind of deal with the pain. We're kind of bred to just deal with pain, suck it up. But when the hopelessness, when I didn't feel like this was ever going to get better, that there was no exit ramp to this, that's when I started thinking, worse thoughts.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that nobody really talks about, because it's easy to think that this is a crutch for the all-nighters. And then when you get to the other side of this, when you do realize it's a problem, that's where nobody really talks about that side of it. So careful with pulling the all-nighters with a stimulus.
Yeah. They, I mean, and again, it happens so innocently, kind of insidiously, to good people. So now I'm involved in the recovery community. So I work at a program called Narcotics Anonymous.
Yep.
I was on the board at Ashley Addiction,
Amazing.
Which is where I went, by the way. So when I knew I needed help.
So you actually did go to a treatment center.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Went to rehab.
Great.
It's now called Ashley Addiction Center. And they saved my life. That place saved my life. And when I got out, I worked I've been working various recovery programs for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
And really now it's Narcotics Anonymous, 12-step program, kind of a cousin to Alcoholics Anonymous. But NA is more about the disease of addiction. It doesn't really matter what drug. Alcohol's part of that for a lot of people. But it's just been an amazing journey. But to see people that come in and hear these stories, and they all have a similar pattern to them, and most people had no intention to get into where they...
No, it starts off very innocent. Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that part of your story, because, I'm sure at no point in this were you like, oh, I'm going to go on and create my own concierge practice. And
No, I was just trying to survive at that point.
Right. So there is light at the other side of this. What was the hardest part about confronting addiction while also being a physician, like the person who's supposed to be providing help to others? Was there a moment where you're like, I'm kind of an imposter in this, or a fraud in this? Any of that?
Yeah. I mean, two completely different lives.
Yeah.
2 lives. We talk a lot in addiction about wearing masks.
Yeah.
Here's the person that you see, the person my patients see, my colleagues see. And then there's this other side of me that's just total darkness.
Yeah.
And, living 2 lives and being 2 different people is draining in of itself. So I need more Ritalin to deal with the energy expenditure.
Right.
Just
absolutely not tackling this.
All of this. So it was a lot of work to keep up the image that actually had my act together when I when I didn't. So
Yeah.
it was tough. And then the stigma, yeah, sure, we're the ones who are supposed to be helping. Like we doctors never get sick, right? And there is this, I think, culturally, maybe it's changing now, about this kind of superhuman culture. I think we're starting to understand about provider burnout. I talk about that in my book, specifically for this reason.
Yeah.
Providers across the board, doctors, nurses, are really struggling. It's a big part of our healthcare system problem, is that the providers are just they're just burnt out. You can't. It's not a sustainable model the way it is right now.
Yeah. This one wasn't written. This is just coming to me because I'm curious, when you do hit this like rock bottom point where you're seeking out a treatment facility, or you recognize like this darkness is now consuming any little bit of light that I do have. Who was the first person that you really turned to and you were like, I got to get help? Do you remember?
Oh, no. Yeah, it was the psychiatrist I was seeing at the time. I had my first psychiatrist who prescribed the Ritalin. Again, nothing against her. She was amazing, did great work. She did not know the extent that I had, in addition to her, was seeking out other care. She had no idea.
As most of them, I feel like, don't probably. Well, maybe there's more that are aware of that now. But at the time, I don't know that they were communicating to know.
Nobody was communicating. There was no communication. There's no checks and balances.
Right.
Anybody can get a script anywhere. It was a mess.
Yeah.
And this is actually, I was... Ritalin was my drug of choice, but if you think about it, that was the opiate epidemic.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
This was the late 90s, early 2000s, when that whole debacle was just underway. I talk about that as well. But yeah, everybody was doctor shopping. It was just, the drugs were being handled like candy.
Yeah.
And we caused a lot of problems back then. And we're still dealing with the repercussions of that.
Yeah. So what did that chapter of your life teach you about how we define success in high pressure professionals like medicine? And we're going to delve into the pressure piece of it. But what did that chapter really highlight for you? And like, oh, this probably isn't just me that's dealing with this. It's anybody in this high stress environment.
So the first thing that comes to mind is never, ever give up.
Yeah.
If you're breathing, there is hope. Things absolutely can and will get better. Like that's a promise that I can make to anybody, no matter how deep and dark and how far gone you might feel. You absolutely can get better. So if there's one message I would like to give anybody who's in a bad spot is hope.
Yeah.
Because that's what saved me when I finally started climbing out of this pit. And actually, it was at Ashley was when I met other addicts. Like up until then, all this was up in my head. Like this was just a big secret.
Oh yeah, you feel like you're the only one.
Absolutely. There's no way that anybody could ever be doing the things that I was doing. That's how unique I felt in my
And there's other addicts. There's other people that are going through sobriety.
No,
exactly.
No, I'm different.
Right.
I'm different. I got this under control.
They're not as dark
I'm
as
a
yours.
Doctor. Like I'm traveling around. I was working with U.S. Soccer Federation at the time. I was traveling. I was really on the outside. It would have seemed at the peak of my career, and I was doing some great things. No surprise. I mean, I did some really cool stuff, particularly during that last 3 years. But so yeah, I felt like nobody understands, and also nobody understands, how I got into this mess in the first place. So I felt incredibly alone. When I went to rehab, I met 100 other people that were just like me.
Yeah,
different jobs. It doesn't matter what anybody does. It doesn't matter career. We say addiction does not discriminate. What we all have in common is this disease and this journey of collapse, and we're all just trying to rebuild our lives together. So that was a really pivotal moment for me in terms of kind of not feeling alone.
Yeah, it's a big one, I think, because to your point, anybody who's in it, and like logically you do know there are others like me, but you do find some way to be like, it's not as bad as mine. And it's not as dark as mine. It's not going to implode the way that mine's going to implode. You convince yourself that yours is somehow worse. So
and I think it's part of the disease. We're very good at rationalizing.
Oh my God.
And they think about ADHD, addiction. There's a big overlap. There was a friend of mine, Doug Brackman, I'll pitch his book called Driven. And, I worked with him for a while too. He's somebody that really helped me understand and look at the gift as opposed to the curse. Yeah. That was huge for me because up until even that point, even through my recovery, I still kind of like hated this, what went on up here. It was so uncomfortable, just so much
and loud
energy, loud.
Yes.
And it's like getting a song stuck in your head like times 100. Just thought after thought after thought. You just can't shut it off and it becomes so uncomfortable. He was the first one that said, hey man, like that's a gift. That's a superpower.
Yeah.
60,000 years ago, like this driven tribe, which we now label as ADHD or
Yeah.
addicts, all the kind of negative connotations. We're creative, right? We're tenacious. We're persistent. We're active. We can adapt quickly.
Yep.
We're generally charismatic, personal. We can, we get, we understand we're people.
Yeah.
And it's just not necessarily valued in kind of this kind of hyper structured environment that we have. So we're kind of the outcast.
Yeah.
But this idea that not only am I not abnormal, this idea that I could be thought of as like gifted,
Yeah.
that I could harness this. And that's kind of, I think, what you were saying, or what I'm doing now is taking all of that. I'm not any different than I used to be.
No, you're
I'm
just
just channeling all of that into a direction. Now I kind of feel unstoppable. It's great.
It's
so
crazy.
I really, like, honestly, for the first time in a long time, first time ever actually, really like the way my brain works.
Yep.
I like myself. I like the direction this is going, and good things are happening.
And I think kind of like you're saying with finding a different meaning behind it is that, I mean, as easily as we can get addicted to the negative things, people with ADD, ADHD also are just addictive personalities. So if you are, you can do that in working out and you're addicted to being fit. I've done that, and that's kind of where I channel, if I'm having those darker thoughts, it's all right, we're going for a run or we're going to go lift. But those addictive personalities, if channeled the right way, are such a superpower. Yeah. It's just, you have to really work to figure out, like, where is this gonna best serve me?
I think that's the key. You have to work at it.
Yeah.
You have to practice. We talk about practicing these spiritual principles in our program is what we call them. But they're just these things like practicing patience.
Yeah.
Practicing restraint. I'm an impulsive guy.
That's a big one. I know. Impulse
restraint
is tough.
I have to practice that.
Yeah.
Patience. Like
a yellow light. You got to have a yellow light.
Yeah, there historically is no yellow light.
No,
right?
me either.
It's just 0 to 100.
We hate a yellow light.
Nothing in between.
Yep.
And so I have, through my program, I've really been working on that. And that's even more in the last, say, 3 years. But like anything else, if you practice it, you can get good at it.
Yeah.
And I'm much better at, like I said, kind of channeling that. Doesn't take away from what I have. I just can constrain it a little bit. I can contain it. I can channel it, focus it, and get some good things done. You brought up a good point too, though. It's not necessarily just about drugs, including alcohol. Alcohol's a drug, right? Yeah. But it could be exercise. Yeah. I in my practice, I have a lot of high performing people. That's kind of my brand: health, performance, longevity, and I love it. I get them. Yeah. I get people, but that can be overdone. Work can certainly be overdone to the extent of, like, sacrificing family time and self care. So this addictive personality, ADHD, they're very similar.
Yeah. It's a fine line.
Yes.
You spent decades practicing medicine inside the system. When did you first start to realize that the American healthcare system wasn't just flawed, but structurally broken? We're taking a turn here. We're getting out because we could go down the rabbit hole of the Ritalin journey all day.
When I was looking at bankruptcy, honestly, when I finished my training, that's when I went to rehab. So all that Ritalin was kind of compressed towards the end of my training during my fellowship. So I finished that. Basically went to rehab shortly thereafter, and then when I came, when I got out, I inherited this medical practice, a primary care practice in Baltimore, 2,500 people.
No pressure. Get right out of rehab and you inherit this practice.
the day after.
Okay,
so that's besides the point. And this was a very well respected internal medicine doctor who had a very high end clientele. Yeah, but you know what thing? But I was clean. I'm like, this
you
was
had
not
clean
this
slate.
was nothing.
Yeah.
I'm like, bring it on. So now I'm going to channel all of this into this new practice opportunity, which I did. And for 2 years, I saw how probably 1,500 to 2,500 people. Here's the thing that I realized: I like people. My style of medicine is very engaging. I want to build that relationship. I want to understand what's going on in your life. It's not just about the numbers and the drugs. That's part of it. But I want to hear it all. You can't do that in the 10-minute.
I was going to say, I get 15 minutes from a doctor in a standard doctor, concierge, different, which we'll get into. But anymore.
It's impossible.
Nobody has time to share their story in that window.
So I spent basically an hour with every new patient. I'd see 8 patients a day plus all the other work, right? So that's 8 hours plus 9. I was still working like 16 hours. Well, 12 to 14, 16-hour days. But it was great. It was exciting, and I met so many good people. The problem was, at the end of that 2 years, I was out of money. Had $85,000 in receivables from an insurance company. They refused to pay me, And I just had piled on. I was already, gosh, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And I had here I am again. Like, I'm 2 years out from this what I thought was rock bottom.
Yeah.
Now I'm at this new professional rock bottom. And I was going to quit medicine. Honestly, it is true that I was going to start a landscaping company.
A hard pivot.
We're
gonna cut lawns now.
Oh, yeah. Pretty much. Planting bushes.
Honestly, it
lawns.
sounds very peaceful.
Oh,
in comparison.
I thought it was incredibly peaceful. Like,
I just
and
like
it's
to
visual
plant
visual.
some shrubs today.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
the immediate satisfaction. It was going to be great.
Totally get
It's
it.
going to be great. I was down that rabbit hole, and then I had I told my patient, I'm sorry, it's not working out. I'm quitting medicine. Keep in mind, I had been 17 years when you go back to my physical therapy days and sports medicine. I was 17 years of training for this, and I was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
My patient said, no, you're not. You're not going
Can
anywhere.
we wait until after my appointment is wrapped up, please?
Pretty much. I had a number of handful for sure. They said, listen, we don't quit.
Yeah.
Don't change the way you practice. Because the suggestion I got that time was, hey, you got to see 4 people an hour. That's the business model.
Yeah.
You can't see 1 person an hour. I'm like, I'm just getting started in 15 minutes. Like there was no way I was going to be able to do that. So they said, listen, we don't care. Figure it out. Just get out of insurance. Tell us what it costs, and we'll pay.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I'm like, gosh, I don't even know how to. This concierge model wasn't around at that point in time. And I just kind of reverse engineered some numbers. I figured I could take really good care of 300 people. I had 1,500 that were active, another 1,000 that were out there that I didn't know. And I just reverse engineered the numbers. I told everybody I didn't make any more money by going to concierge. I just had a small group of people that I could spend more time with. And that's the essence of that.
Yeah. And I was not familiar with this model at all until my parents brought it up. And it was actually during COVID, because everybody was freaking out about the ability to get into doctors if you had an emergency. So I hurried up and, I guess I'm going to go to a concierge doctor. But even then in COVID, my friends, people my age, they were like, what are you doing? What is this? Like, no one really knew much about it unless they were an older patient. We'll get into that whole bit too. You describe our system in your book as a sick care system. What does that mean in practical terms for the average patient walking into a doctor's office?
So the whole medical system as it stands now, the assumption was,
Screwed.
say, 100 years.
Not a good one.
No, well, it's awful. But but I say in the book, I said, because I had to go back and say, how in the world did we get into this mess?
Yeah.
Is it intentional? And there's a lot of thoughts about that right now because there's a lot of people that are taking advantage of the system. But I'm convinced it didn't start that way. It started for all the right reasons. And why? Because 100 plus years ago, people were generally healthy. We didn't have this epidemic of chronic disease that we have right now. Most people either got injured on the job, or they got influenza or some infection or tuberculosis. And
Scarlet fever.
Scarlet
I remember.
fever. Okay,
Was that the Oregon Trail diseases?
Oh yeah. There was like a handful of like these infectious diseases.
Yeah.
But that's when penicillin was coming out, way back when. And so hospitals built up around this idea that we can, we should have a place where people can go to heal. Hospitals like hospice is like recovery. It was actually imagine now a hospital to heal. You don't now.
Absolutely not.
There's no healing goes on in hospitals. But
sounds lovely though.
It does sound nice. So that So the hospital system came up, and then it was expensive. So then insurance companies came in to say, well, let's just kind of pool our money together. When somebody's unfortunate enough to need hospital care, then we'll just kind of pay for it.
Right.
Great idea. Worked beautifully for a while, but I don't think anybody predicted this epidemic of chronic disease that we've had over the last 100 years. And now, most people suffer from at least one, if not two, chronic diseases. And chronic diseases, we try to manage them with medications, which has exploded the pharmaceutical industry. So we don't actually try to reverse or kind of undo chronic disease. That's something I think we need to think about.
Or even prevent. What's that?
Oh my gosh, yeah, we definitely can get into prevention conversation. So now you have this system. We have a society of people that are chronically ill for the most part, who with the least little stressor will get pushed over the edge. They'll get a pneumonia, they'll get sick, have a heart attack, stroke, whatever it is, and they end up in the hospital. So we have this massive hospital industry. It's not bad. I'm not against sick care. I'm not against hospital care. I'm not against emergency medicine care. I worked as an ER doc for 3 years, part-time. I'm sick or anybody I know is sick, I want that. As a doctor, if I have a patient who's sick, I want access. The problem now is you can't really even get access to the hospital because they're so filled up with sick people.
You're lucky to get in there in 9 hours.
If you need it, you can't get access to it. That's why the whole thing is not working very well.
And people are going that route because they're not getting the proper attention at their primary care. So they're using it as like a pseudo primary care and taking up space for the people that are truly in an emergent situation.
Yep. And, so that's the sick care system. It's focused on disease. And not to mention, that's how people make money. So this idea of billing code, about the coding game in the book, that if you don't have a disease, you can't get paid.
Yep.
So the system needs people to be sick in order for people to get paid. So industries have just kind of emerged to take care of sick people. And nobody has ever really thought, except for us in primary care, but that's restricted because we don't get paid to prevent disease.
Right.
There's no real mechanism for it. I mean, it's been evolving, so I don't want to be fair to some of the recent changes, but it's woefully underappreciated, and the financial model isn't conducive to promoting health.
Yeah.
It's just simply designed to take care of sick people. But we need a healthcare system. We
Yes.
have a sick care system. We need a healthcare system.
I 100% agree with you. So why does the system tend to incentivize treating disease instead of preventing it? Why do you think that is, that we wouldn't want to flip it and think like, how do we prevent these things from happening?
Again, there's just no money in prevention.
Yeah.
Like if it's like, how does a hardware store make more money with less customers? How does a hospital make money? And I'm going to take the private equity that owns a hospital out of there, but that's added fuel to the fire. But just from a business standpoint, it's just, you have a customer base, you need customers to make money. So it is a challenge. Now, that has been somewhat solved, at least in theory and in practice, with this idea of what's called value-based care. So we're not just paying for services now. Because right now, the idea is you go live your life, you get sick, you go to the doctor or the hospital, they provide a service, the insurance company pays for that service, and everybody gets paid. Hopefully you get better. But it's all around, again, that sickness. So we need we have to figure, I said, if you can figure out how a hospital can make more money keeping people out of the hospital, then the system's going to start to change. But how does any business make more money with less customers?
Right.
Again, there's a mechanism for that. But you asked, why is it not happening? The reason why it's not happening, I think we can figure the finances out. We don't have a clinical model or even a science of prevention. We don't know how to do it. You can say, vaccines, okay. Vaccines are good for preventing disease. Fresh water in like third world country, that's good.
Yeah.
So public health wise, there's some things that we figured out. But in kind of our modern environment, we do not have a model or a science underlying a model. And that's a lot of stuff that I'm working on more recently. Because if we don't have a clinical model, nobody's going to take risk. It's like, I don't know how to prevent disease. I'm not going to enter into sound great, but I'm not going to do it.
Right. And I think there's a lot, it feels like, and you can speak to it more than me because you're in it, but it feels like enough people are starting to question it now that there is a little bit more of a push to kind of figure this thing out. And even the patients are starting to be like, this doesn't make sense. They're seeking more. They're wanting more of that attention and preventative type care. And
without a doubt. And this was cool for me, right? So there is definitely in the market out there, and social media has been great to kind of allow people the platform that are interested in health. That has always been a fitness industry, but it's been kind of niche and people that like to exercise. So that's been good. But I think what we're starting to see with the whole longevity movement, it's a bit of a interesting term, longevity. Most people really care about health span or quality of life or what I call functional capacity. So this idea of health, performance, longevity is the way we need to be thinking about that. So we're seeing a lot of interest in that. And now what you're seeing is a lot of people going outside the conventional medical system. This has caused some tension, right? But people are like, I don't care. I just had a guy the other day. He's skeptical about the current medical system and is leery about taking all these medicines. He needs 2. He takes 1. The other one is I'm not taking that. But yet he's interested in all the supplements and peptides. And,
oh my gosh.
And in
we live in like a supplement world right now.
So this is, we can talk about that. Now, in fairness, he really lives an impeccable lifestyle. Yeah. So it starts, most people are starting to realize like, hey, if I want to be healthy, it starts with me. Yeah. It starts foundationally with exercise, proper nutrition. adequate sleep. Those are the three big ones. Social connectivity is huge. Positive relationships.
Sounds like we're talking blue zones here.
Very much blue zones.
Yeah.
So all of this is kind of emerging. Now, what's happening and what I'm hopeful is we're starting to see an interest amongst academic medical centers who have typically fought back against the kind of alternative medicine doctors, the homeopaths, naturopaths. We're starting to see, I think, hey, this is right. This is what we need to do. We have financial models. We can build a business around healthcare. We can still keep our sick care model in case we're never going to prevent disease altogether. Right. So you got to have all that. And, but again, the problem I see it is we don't have a clinical model of prevention. We don't have a scientific foundation for it. But that is going to be figured out. We're going to figure out, and it may be, you may ask me this in a little bit, about the interest in human spaceflight.
Yes.
So human spaceflight is one of the great drivers of this whole concept of prevention and resilience and performance. So that's kind of why I end up in that crowd. Because
I was going to say, and you're right in the middle of the noise. So I can't wait to get into that piece of it. Well, let's just talk about it. Let's just get into the NASA piece.
I've gotten involved through a very good friend of mine, Hopkins faculty member, Mark Shellhammer.
Okay.
Mark's a good friend. He's a researcher at Hopkins in human spaceflight. And Mark was the chief scientist for what's called the Human Research Program at NASA. Okay. So NASA does research on exactly human research in terms of how to keep astronauts functioning at a high level in what amounts to be a very, very extreme environment. And I mean, we've had humans in space for 50 years now, back to the Apollo missions, or prior to that. But and there's been a lot of work that's been done in terms of these zero gravity environments. International Space Station's been up for 20 years. So there's a lot of work that's been done, but as we're starting to look at going beyond kind of what's called low Earth orbit, we're going to be hanging out on the moon for long periods of time and eventually going to Mars, that changes the conversation entirely. So I just found myself through really my friendship with Dr. Shellhammer and others, this kind of crowd. Yeah. A lot of whom are former NASA researchers. Yeah. And we kind of together are figuring out, what are the models that we need? How do we need to be approaching this? And here's what's cool about it. It's the same problem. And I think the reason why because I'm not, most researchers in human spaceflight are aerospace medicine trained. Yep. A lot of them have engineering backgrounds. And I come at it a little bit differently, but as a primary care doctor, I take care of people for years on end. Yeah. So together we're really kind of exploring some new approaches to this idea of performance and health and resilience and prevention. But again, whether it's up there or down here, it's the same concept. Yeah. How do you keep people performing at a high level in complex environments without breaking down for a long period of time?
I was going to say, you kind of scrapped the Earth idea. You're like, they're not listening here. We're going to go to Mars.
There is, for me, there is some
shot up there.
It's called a clean slate.
And you went, we are fully for it. I'm like, we are done with Earth.
Pretty much. But my thing is we can solve it up there, at least about the framework and the math and all this kind of stuff.
It's quieter up there.
And then we can bring it back here.
Yeah.
So, because a lot of people question, like, why are we spending money? I'm like, listen, because that's where we're going to solve that problem and a whole host of other problems.
It's all that's going to benefit down here.
It will benefit us as it has in the past. Yeah. So I find it that it's just cool. It's just flat out cool.
It's so cool. Yeah. Let's see. When people think about healthcare, they think about hospitals and clinics, not space missions. So what does healthcare look like in the context of long duration and space exploration?
So in two components, we need medical care available if somebody does get sick. And that's where a lot of the models have been, a lot of the focus has been on figuring out how to do that, right? Because when you're in a spacecraft, you have very limited space. Everything, you have to get it off of Earth, out through the Earth's atmosphere, so it has weight until you get up into the zero gravity environment, and all that costs money and fuel. It's hard, so you can't take everything that you want. And this idea of resource constraint is an interesting problem. So on Earth, we basically act as if we have no unlimited resources, and our medical system, our sick care system, acts as if it has unlimited resources. And that's why we're spending $5.3 trillion a year in medical services. So it does cause a problem. Now that problem is being worked on. any spacecraft right now, ISS has a certain amount of medical care.
Yeah.
We saw recently they didn't have enough, right?
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you were involved in
Yeah.
any of those conversations.
No. Yeah, that was off, fully NASA.
Yeah.
Now there's a whole commercial space flight,
Yeah.
which is outside of NASA, which is interesting, and providing all kinds of opportunities for non-professional astronauts to go into space.
Yes.
That's kind of
Katy
cool.
Perry.
There you go.
Hey,
so yeah,
she's an astronaut now.
She's an astronaut now. That's what they say. And that is also kind of pushing this conversation because now you're not. I mean, let's face it, professional astronauts pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Pretty well trained. Pretty.
Oh my
fit.
gosh.
Yeah, they're kind of badass.
Put through the ringer.
Yeah, and so the future of human spaceflight is not going to be all these super healthy people, and we have no idea what that means.
Right.
But what we do know is, will we someday have hospitals on the moon or Mars? I don't know. But even if that's the wrong way to be thinking about the problem. Do not create. I've said this. Please do not recreate the broken medical system we have on Earth.
Please
on
leave
Mars.
it here.
Don't recreate this. It's so we can take elements of it. And so as far as the what do we do if somebody gets sick? How do we diagnose and how do we treat? Absolutely needs to be done. Lots of my friends are working on that exact problem. My interest is in never needing it in the first place.
Yeah.
I believe that we solve that problem by figuring out truly how to prevent disease from ever happening, or at least catching it before it actually becomes what we call a disease. And I think there are ways that we can do that. And a lot of it's with wearables and monitors and things like that. And AI is going to help us. So I do see a day where I think in human spaceflight, that's how we're going to solve that problem. Have the care available, never need it.
Yeah.
But imagine if we really could start to undo chronic disease. Imagine if we could really prevent chronic disease, or at least prevent the complications of chronic disease. That model would work here on Earth as well. And like you said, there's a lot of people that are very interested in this.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, very, very interested in this. Because I have people say, I don't ever want to get sick. And I say, great. My goal, and this is true, and I've said this to many patients, if I'm practicing another 20 years, my goal is for no patient to ever be hospitalized. No heart attacks, no cancers, no dementia, no autoimmune disease, none of it. I am so passionate about prevention and the individual patients in front of me, and everybody's different. And I think a lot, we talk about it with my patients. Let's see what these next 20 to 30 years look like, and how do we make sure nothing bad ever happens to you?
Yeah.
So.
You touched on an interesting space, because this is one that I kind of geek out about, and we talked about it a little bit offline too, but the wearable data analytics, how much is that a part of your conversation in a lot of your research? Are you, because I'm what it feels like we're in right now is that people are all about the data. They don't know what to do with it once they have it. Right? They see all the numbers and they're like, this is great.
That's a problem. That's
my VO2 max is whatever. But okay, what does that mean for your life? Yeah. So where do you see kind of the wearable data analytics going in the future, and how can we use them better than what we are now?
Yeah, it's a great question, something I think a lot about. I think in the short term, I've worn them all, right? I've tried them all.
Right.
I love them. I mean, I would say that the sleep data that I got, it was absolutely, R and WHOOP were really impactful for me when I started understanding the quality of my sleep.
I always wonder if the sleep part's accurate. So I'm happy to hear that you had a good experience with the sleep.
It's accurate enough.
Yeah.
And none of this is perfect. They always say
Right.
no model's perfect. All models are wrong. Some are useful. And that's true. But there's enough reproducibility that I could say, okay, well, if I don't eat, after 6, if I allow 3 hours before, dinner and bedtime, oh my gosh, my deep sleep is consistently better.
Yeah.
Is it exactly 1 hour? I don't know, but it's better. And if I run the experiments, I'm going to have I'm going to have a cheesesteak at 9 o'clock at night. Guess what? It's wrecked. It's not even close. And don't even talk about alcohol. Alcohol wrecks it. If anybody has ever run that experiment.
Yeah.
So now we can start to self-experiment. Right?
Yeah.
Now you can start to, and on the other side, whether it's blue light blocking glasses, whether it's, not watching crazy TV shows, really the pre-sleep routine, the sleep hygiene is I think the most important 3 hours of the day are the 3 hours before you go to sleep, as far as health is concerned. I always ask people, what do you do between dinner and bedtime? That's one of my biggest questions. I ask everybody.
Have panic attacks, usually.
Yeah, or watch the news. I'm like, oh, that's going to calm me down.
Yeah.
So
murder mystery or something.
Yeah. So how do you so restructuring people's sleep hygiene, or that time period, with all kinds of just tools, and some of those are supplements that they play a role.
Yeah.
And then, sleep conditions, cold, dark, quiet, all those things matter. And there's a lot of, conversation, a lot of information on how to sleep. I would say that I think sleep is the most impactful. I think exercise foundationally for long-term is, it's hard to prioritize all these because they're important. But sleep is the one that you can fix tomorrow and realize the benefits.
It's so wild to me, the conversation around sleep right now, because I think we all know, like, yes, sleep is necessary. But I think that was like the extent of it in prior years. And I feel like maybe 10 years ago was like the hit generation. It was P90X. Like, let's see how far we can push ourselves and let's go, go, go. Sleep was like not a topic.
Your weakness.
Yeah.
Sleep is, that was at medical school. Like, if you need to sleep, you're weak.
Right.
And I still deal with that culturally with a lot of more of the men than women. You guys seem to have a better sense of things. So I have to talk about dialing it back. I'm all about performance. I'm all about kicking ass. I get it.
But you can't if there's no fuel.
Exactly. If you don't allow healing, right?
Yeah.
Or you can do the exercise is just a signal to promote an adaptive response. If you don't allow time to adapt, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
In fact, you're injuring yourself. It's actually become harmful.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of conversations about how to exercise properly, how to balance that, how to fuel it with proper nutrition, how to balance out with sleep and other forms of deload weeks and just recovery periods and various other, all kinds of very cool recovery strategies out now and tools. So it's available. But back to your original point, people can wear this data and says, oh, your recovery score is low. What do I do?
Right.
What do I do with all this data? I think long-term, the data gets integrated. What I want is to see at least right now, is all the what we'll call health data integrated with medical data.
Yeah.
So I have people bring in their apps and we look on their phones and I've got their labs over here, and I can't really put that together in a intelligent fashion. That will change. We're starting to see some of that, but again, even that. It has to be interpreted by somebody who knows you.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not worried about AI taking over, but AI will augment what I do. All this wearable data will come in. It'll be integrated with all of the notes and the conversations that we've had. Everything gets recorded. All the labs, some I do once a year, some I do once a quarter, some I do once a month. The wearable data is every couple minutes. We call that nested timescales. So I want data at various timescales.
Yeah. And
the question is, how does all that, because AI is all about pattern recognition. And it can recognize not just patterns like giraffes and zebras and things like that, but time.
Yeah.
So all this is called time series data, and you follow all these numbers over time, and you see patterns emerge. And that is where we're going to start to be able to pick things up that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
Never seen before.
I love this stuff. Like, I think it's an exciting time to be in it. And I recognize it even when I wear like an external heart monitor when I train. I have a run coach. And it's just interesting to kind of look at the data when I bonk in a race and see, okay, was it sleep related? Was it fuel related? So I think it's really cool that we'll be able to hopefully integrate this into bigger conversations with our healthcare providers. But to that point, I think so much of this, it's not that the data is not useful. It's not that the medication isn't useful. It's that you have to go to various sources for all of these things, and no one is talking. Do you foresee a day where they all come together and everything's stored in, like, I don't know, one spot?
No, I'm laughing.
All the doctors are typing the same spot.
This is my dream, right?
Right.
This is I am as a kind of self-declared systems thinker.
Yeah.
And that's what I do in primary care. I mean, I love working with specialists. Somebody said, you're a jack of all trades and a master of being a jack of all trades. I used to say master of none. Like, no, that's not true.
No, you're definitely a master of some here.
There's this idea of, and not everybody, I think this go back to the ADHD. Right?
Yeah.
This is the gift.
Yeah.
This is the gift, is to be able to kind of like see multiple things and see how they all like are interacting with each other over time. And that's why I love primary care. Will I see it? Will there be there will be, because there has to be. I can tell you this right now. Healthcare costs are going to they're not getting better. It's not sustainable. Right. So it's forcing change. And you're starting to see people embrace it just in their personal lives, but from a system standpoint, something has to give.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to happen is it all converges, and we'll have these types of platforms. We'll have what I call technology-enabled primary care or AI-assisted primary care, where I can say, we can have the conversation, we look at the data, and I can say to my AI colleague, what do you think? And they will look at this in a different way, but they're not in isolation. It's not an app on your phone. This is something that is, I call it a triad. So patient, physician, AI. And we're all learning together.
Yeah.
About what is working for you, what is not working for you, and that gives us some predictive capacity. I call it much like hurricane modeling. They're seeing weather predictions.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. Imagine if you could prevent a fall an hour before it happens.
Oh my gosh.
You know how much money you would
cool.
save in Medicare? Like you know how many hospitalizations you would save? You know how much suffering you would alleviate just to be able to prevent the fall. So Mrs. Smith gets a phone call. Imagine that one day with whatever she's got on. The models are picking up. Somebody gets an alert and says, "Hey, there's a 98.5% probability Mrs. Smith is going to fall in the next hour."
This is wizardry.
Getting a phone call. Hey, what do you have to do? I was going to go down and be with my friends. I'll tell you what, why don't you just sit on the couch and we're going to send somebody up to check in on you. Right. So that's the kind of prevention that I think we're going to be able to do. But imagine preventing cancer a year before it happens. There's some really cool early diagnostic markers, liquid biopsy, some of the DNA-based tests. Very cool. Catches cancer very early. I'd like to detect it and prevent it a year ahead of time. Alzheimer's disease, cognitive dysfunction.
Oh my gosh.
All this stuff.
That conversation.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah.
So we're going to get there.
I'm glad that you have hope in it. And I think it's interesting that when you're talking about AI, because so many people are freaked out about AI, they think, oh, it's going to eliminate my job and they're not going to need us anymore. In no world do you see that being a case. It's a tool that you use in conjunction with other parties.
Absolutely. It's
doctors,
I think of it as
patients.
a multi-tool.
Yes.
You know, Swiss Army knife type of thing. I mean, there's so many capabilities and I use it quite a bit.
Same.
Yeah, it's really. I've been able to do like a project, this resilience project we're working on, in 6 months that historically would have taken me 6 years.
Yeah.
Now, there's just no way in terms of its ability to kind of gather, digest, summarize information. Now you have to learn, like any tool, you have to learn how to use it. And if you don't use it properly, you cut yourself. It can really make you look stupid.
Yeah.
So, but as a tool in the right hands for the right purpose, it is it's already changing things in a way that we couldn't predict. I'm not. There will be, I think, some jobs that will be displaced. I think AI will play a huge role in terms of just reducing, like the blocking and tackling and just some of the work that is just, it could be offloaded to AI. And what will that do? That'll free up humans to be human beings, right? To use our creativity and our interpersonal skills.
Yeah.
AI is still, they're not biological systems. They need us to explain to them what's going on in the real world. They don't interact with the real world. So I see it as a team approach.
And this may be like way off base for what your awareness is of the AI portion of things, but do you think that there's going to be a different level of governance around it for the medical space?
Probably, just because that's how medicine works. There is this protected health information conversation, HIPAA, right?
Right.
And that's real. Nobody wants their health information, particularly things we talked about early on, right? Out there on the front page of the news.
Yeah.
So we have to protect people's privacy and their health information. That is not an insurmountable problem, minus any advanced cyber attacks. We can do that. Having worked in terms of trying to integrate data, the HIPAA conversation makes it very, very challenging. So there probably needs to be some reorganization or restructuring of those regulations to allow us to be able to share data. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all your data. Like it should just sit with you in some protected vault where you decide who has access to it. And maybe me as a primary care doctor said, okay, well, I have access to all of it, and we'll have AI, and then kind of help us decide what's going on. And then as we need to share that with different people, we can share it, and you just decide who to share it with. But again, very, very possible. But I think AI will probably be regulated a bit differently in healthcare.
Yeah. I like that you sound very hopeful about it. So this makes me happy. We've gone so far off script now. But if you have to fast forward 20 years and healthcare system truly improves, what will have changed? What will have been the biggest changes?
Primary care. New primary care model.
Yeah.
Right now, less than 5% of the $5.3 trillion goes to primary care prevention. That needs to double to 10, probably should be 20 if you look at other countries that are doing well. If you look at self-insured corporations in this country that are doing well. If you look at health plans and regional health systems that are doing well in terms of, one, reduced chronic disease, reduced hospitalizations, reduced cost, higher quality of life, all the metrics that we all want. It is all because they have fully pushed in a new, or at least pushed in a primary care model that is focused on prevention and disease management and what I would call care coordination. Because again, one of the problems now, nobody's talking to anybody. Right? Cardiologist isn't talking to the nephrologist.
No.
They're not talking to gastroenterologist. And frankly, they're not even talking to me.
And you kind of have to do that for yourself. We talked about this a little earlier offline, but you are that person that's doing the talking in between. You have to advocate for yourself or have somebody that advocates for you that's talking to all of these folks in order to really get them all on the same page.
Absolutely. And I think that should uniquely be the role of primary care. We're good at it because, again, I love talking to cardiologists and kidney doctors, and I enjoy that. I don't have to be an expert in anything. I just have to know somebody who's an expert.
Yeah.
Right. But I have to be like a really good B student. Like I need to know a lot about everything. But that's my wheelhouse, right? That again, back to this kind of gift of addiction and ADHD. That's a skill set. So I think what we need to do and there's a lot of specialists that I think would be incredible primary care doctors. You just can't make any money in primary care.
No.
So nobody's doing
no motivator.
it. But if we finance things differently, if you can make more money as a primary care doctor than a cardiologist, you're going to have a lot of these residents going into primary care than cardiology or dermatology or any of these other specialties. Nothing against my cardiology colleagues.
Right.
But a lot of decisions get made because you're $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in debt. You can't afford to make $180,000 as a primary care doctor.
No.
Or $200,000 even. It's just not realistic. So nobody's doing it. So right now the trend is not good. But I think once we understand the payment structure and primary care doctors can get paid very well to do a job after 10 years of training with the responsibilities that we have, you're going to see more people go into primary care. And guess what? You're going to see more prevention, more care coordination, less cost, less hospitalizations. I don't want to oversimplify it, but it's just showing to be that if you just invest in primary care, disease goes down, hospitalizations go down, costs go down. That's where it's going to be, I think, spectacular because all this health-related data is now going to come into the primary care model.
Yeah.
And we're just not going to let anybody get sick. It's just not going to happen.
Well, and I liken primary care right now, unfortunately, to like a traffic coordinator position where it's almost like, I know if I were to call, this is before I switched to a concierge model, but I would know before calling my primary care doctor that I was going to some specialist. It was not going to be solved with primary care. And I was almost annoyed from a patient side of things to be having to schedule an appointment to sit with them for 15 minutes for them to say, all right, this is the specialist that you have to see. I'm like, what? Then why did I come in here? What?
Yeah, called the chronic punt. So
they're like backlogged. So you have to wait weeks to get in there for them to tell you that they're referring you to a specialist.
It's virtually a waste of time. There's so much inefficiency and wasted energy and money in the current system. It's ridiculous. There's so much money to be saved, and just in terms of efficiencies. But think about this: if you're a doctor, you have 15-minute office visit, like you're told that's the model. You have 4 people an hour, 8-hour day. 5 of that, a third of that's going to be paperwork time.
Yeah.
So you've got 10 minutes, 11 minutes maybe.
What could you possibly uncover about somebody
So when you're in
that,
and I've been in that situation, and the only thing you're thinking is, how do I get them out in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
So if you come in with knee pain, like, oh, you need to go see orthopedic surgeon. If I can get you out in 5, then I just save time because I got 3 people waiting in the waiting room. And all you're doing is managing time. You're not able to, and it's not that they don't want to. Primary care providers, we again, naturally empathetic. We want to hear it all.
I feel for them. I'm like, this is awful.
That's why nobody's happy.
Yeah.
Unless you're in a concierge model, and that's that's limited, but it does solve the problem, and I think it may be a force of change as we go forward. But yeah, and if I can order a test, get this X-ray, come back and see me in 4 weeks, or a drug, right? Medications have a role for sure. Are they overprescribed? Absolutely. Why? Because it's easy. Yeah. If you come in and you have a stomach ache or a back pain, I can just get an X-ray and then you come back and they give you an anti-inflammatory medicine. You're fine with that. So it's just culturally that's where we're at. We're sickness, drug, next. Sickness, drug, next. Yeah. It's just an assembly line. Nobody's thinking anymore because you don't have time.
Yeah. For somebody who, like myself, up until a couple of years ago, was unfamiliar with the concierge model, can you talk to us just, high level? What's the difference between a primary care situation now and a concierge model for somebody who might be considering going that route?
So, and there's different forms of it, and everybody kind of has their own flavor of it, I guess you could say. As a general rule, you pay an annual fee or a monthly fee, and your provider has fewer patients. Yep. Therefore, they can spend more time with you. It really is simple as that. When I made the decision to do this, and I was reverse engineering the numbers, I knew I had 1,500 active people in my practice. And I knew from insurance that if I saw everybody every 15 minutes, I would make $300 per year off on average from the insurance, $100 a visit, 3 visits a year. And when I did the math and said, I know from a quality standpoint, I can only take care of 300 people. Because remember, in primary care, you're seeing everybody every year. It's not a consultant where somebody comes in, they leave, and you never see them again. You basically you're in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there's a limit, there's a capacity to how many people you can have and do a good job. 500, maybe 6 is probably about what people can do well. And then there's other ways you can do that. But either way, it's not 1,500, it's not 2,000.
Yeah.
Or some doctors have 3,000 patients. That's impossible to do a good job.
I can't even see how it is remotely possible.
It's a joke. It's a joke. So you just reverse the numbers. So, for me at the time, it was, if I need 300 people, I need $1,500 a year. I'm not making any more money. So, but insurance wasn't going to pay that.
Right.
So I had to send a letter out and said, here's how I'm going to, do this. And if you're interested in this, then I would love to have you on board.
Yeah.
Now, the key for me is I'd already built relationships with people, and so they trusted me. They knew my intentions.
Yeah.
And it's been great.
So the advantage for sure, I would say, and I can attest to this now because I do have a concierge doctor, but it is so much more time. For anybody who's not aware, just to give a comparison, if you're going to a normal primary care, it's 10, 15 minutes. Even in the hospital, it might be that, unless they're addressing somebody or something, huge. But my doctor sits with me for sometimes an hour and a half. It was wild to me. I was like, wait.
I'm often asking patients, how much time do you have?
Yes.
I'd say for a new patient, I block off 3 hours.
Yes.
And at the 2.5 hour mark, I've got to wrap it up. Why? Because people have a story. Back to the story. I want to hear that story. If you're 50 years old and you've never really explained all this, you're basically taking a biography of somebody's life. So there's a lot, and not to mention family history, family dynamics. All of these things are very relevant to your current state of health and the trajectory that you're on. And I need to know how you got to where you are now and what your goals are. Now I can say, okay, well, based on where you are and where you've come from, this doesn't look good or it looks good. So a lot of it's predictive modeling, which we just do now intuitively. That's why I'm so excited about AI, because it's much better than me with more data sources. But that's where the time really comes in. You just get to know what's going on in people's lives.
It was even therapy to an extent. It was, how anxious have you been feeling? Have you had any depression around any of these things? I know that you're really active and you haven't been able to because you've had an injury. How has that impacted depression or anything like that? And it's like,
and
you had to beg for that type of attention in a primary care setting.
Yeah, and the thing is, primary care providers want to have that.
Right.
They just
it's not for lack of wanting it.
And they're, we don't get much training in it, but all you have to do is care. You just open up that conversation. It just takes on a life of its own. It's not. We should have more training in mental health and behavioral health. I think that behavioral health should be built into the primary care model.
Yeah.
There's certain things that we can do just in terms of kind of supportive psychotherapy and again, just building that trusting relationship. But things like health coaches, life coaches, executive coaches. Coaches.
Shameless plug.
Coaching is in my opinion, a big part of the future of a primary care model. I was fortunate to work in a community health program, and I got to see the value of a community health worker. And they have a different relationship. So we can build up primary care teams. We can that can be well financed, so everybody makes a good living, has reasonable hours. We're going to work. Everybody's going to work hard. You don't have to. If you go to medical school or nursing school, you're in the driven tribe. You're going to work hard. So what we need is to get the right framework model in place so that people can be successful and it's actually sustainable. And we're going to get there.
Yeah. For the people that can't see, every time that we have a guest on the Grit Files, we have a quote that we start with. And behind me, it says that your greatest days might be ahead of you. And I feel like that was maybe a little bit of a mantra for you that you didn't even realize. But for somebody who is sitting in this moment of darkness, this moment of, I need help, or I'm not sure what the next days look like, what's your message to them? And I know you said hope was a big one in the beginning.
I would change that. I love it. I would change it slightly to say your greatest days are ahead of you.
Yes,
I can guarantee that. You say, well, how can you guarantee that? Because I know how systems operate. And I know the greater the adversity, the greater the growth. The lower the bottom, the higher the peak. So the darker it has been, and I've seen this in recovery, the stories that I hear in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous are unbelievable. Like, my story is nothing compared to the stories of most of my friends. Yet the growth and the wisdom and the character that these men, we have a men's group, is only achieved. Like, you can't get there unless you've been here.
Right.
Like, so there's something about that adversity. So whatever darkness you're in, even internally in your own head, absolutely in the real world, life is extremely challenging. Mm-hmm. Life throws us curveballs. It's not fair. It's unpredictable. It just flat out sucks often. All of that is a training ground. All of that can be used to learn, to understand, be a better person. And I'd say the worse it is now, the better it's going to be in the future.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Oh, and I love that reframe too, because when you are in that low, that's all you're able to see. Like, you just, and because it feels like it keeps getting lower, you're like, that's the only trajectory this thing has. But I love, for anybody that can't see, he was showing the physical, if you can't go from the bottom, or you can't get to the top without being at the bottom. I think that's so important for somebody to hold on to, is like, how much opportunity, rather than seeing how far you could possibly continue to fall. Like, what is being in that low giving you the opportunity to attain? Mm-hmm. And you are living, breathing proof of that for all of the things that you do. So I really appreciate you sharing your story here today. I'm hopeful in our healthcare system. Might have to switch doctors, I gotta say. Like, I'm loving Dr. Queale. But thank you so much for taking the time to share your story today. And we hope to have you back here, because there's a lot of different directions we need to continue to go here.
Listen, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It is a message that needs to get out, and appreciate the opportunity to share my story.
Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Grit Files, and I'm your host, Laura Reynolds.